Without any further ado, I would like to welcome Dr. Smyth to join us today. Dr. Smyth, could you turn on your camera and could we have a round of applause, please, from a virtual applause from the audience?
Woohoo! Dr. Smyth!
Yes, I seem to be having a little bit of a, some difficulties here.
Are you able to turn your camera on? Oh dear. I think the connection might not be strong enough, Daniel.
Oh God, and I'm the tech guy. I'm supposed to have this figured out. Oh no! What do you think we should do?
Hey guys, hey, Kira here.
Hey Kira, how's it going?
Good, it's good. I know I'm not the tech person. I know it's your first time here, and I'm just the singer. But you know, just watching that video, you guys transported her and you guys played the March of the Women. I'm like thinking maybe we should do that again. See if we can transport her, get her connection going here.
That's a great idea. Maybe you could sing it for us, and we'll just give it a shot.
Sure, I'd love to. Yeah, let's do it.
Okay, awesome. Let's try that. Hold on, Dr. Smyth.
I'm coming for you. Shout, shout, up with your song, cry with the wind, for the dawn is breaking. March, march, swing you along, white blows a banner and hope is waking. Song with its story, dreams with their glory, though they call and glide is a word. Forward, hark how it swells, thunder of freedom, the voice of the Lord. That help at all?
Let's see. Dr. Smyth.
I believe I could get the it's.
Oh God, she's still
A little bit. Oh.
she's still frozen. It's better. Well,
maybe we need a little more stronger connection. Maybe we need the audience to help us sing it.
that makes sense. Like more voices, and then just a stronger connection. That makes perfect sense. Audience out there, if you would be so kind as to sing with us, and please share your video so that we can get an even bigger connection to Dr. Smyth at her Airbnb. We're going to ask you to keep yourself muted just so we can still hear Kira. But I've dropped the lyrics to the first verse of March of the Women in the chat. You'll see it starts with shout, shout, up with your song, okay? So, Kira, why don't you take it away? Everyone on mute, but I want to see in your eyes just the power of the song of March of the Women, okay, everybody?
You can do it. Sing along. It's pretty easy to follow. It's in the piano part, so. Here we go, everyone. You ready? Shout, shout, up with your song, cry with the wind, for the dawn is breaking. March, march, swing thee along, white blows a banner and hope is waking. Song with its glory, dreams with their glory, though they call and glide is a word. Forward, hark how it swells, thunder of freedom, the voice of the Lord. Oh,
I believe it worked.
Working.
All right, Dr. Smyth, you made it! Woohoo! All right.
Fantastic. Well, Dr. Smyth, can I formally introduce you to our fabulous singer, Kira Dills de Sura?
Yes, hello, marvelous voice. Thank you for giving the song great justice.
oh, thank you for writing it. It's very powerful.
Yes, well, the music I wrote.
Yes.
Yes.
That's good.
It's such a wonderful anthem of the suffrage movement, really the anthem. But Kira, you are a mezzo-soprano, correct? Or a lyric mezzo-soprano?
Yeah,
And
that's right.
wonderful. And Dr. Smyth, that was a voice type you quite liked writing for, if I'm not mistaken.
Oh, yes. I believe that, well, that's where my voice sits. And I just believe that in the opera world, mezzos do not get enough to sing. So I wanted to give them more opportunities.
Thank you.
Do you think that's because they might be a little bit less, stereotypically feminine in their voices?
Most certainly, yes. The sopranos typically get to be the more ingenues, the more beautiful ones, and so I like to write for the more feisty women.
Wonderful. And can you tell us a little bit about how you got your start in music, Dr. Smyth?
How I did? Yes, well, let's see, what year are we in? We are in 2021 right now, but
Correct.
back in my time, let's see, I was born in 1858, so I started music at an early age, though it was rather difficult to get into. My father was very, very much against it, but I fought and I studied in Germany, and I studied amongst many of the greats.
Your father really wanted you to take a more traditional path and put on ball gowns, right, and go to find a husband, basically, and you had absolutely no interest in finding a husband.
My father was he was a British general, army general. He was very strict and quite opposed to me going into a man's business.
Yes, I could see that. And Kira, you sing with opera companies, including Opera Colorado, Central City Opera. What kind of brought you to voice?
I kind of had the opposite father. My grandparents on my father's side were both opera singers, actually. He was one of 12, and they were kind of like the Von Trapp family singing along. So I kind of, at every gathering, had to get up and perform, whether you wanted to or not. So I was kind of exposed to opera at a very early age, and I loved it since I was young. So that's kind of maybe a different kind of story than you might hear people getting into opera.
Wonderful. And
that makes me excited to hear that you had support from your family, that now so many generations later that you had support from your father. That makes me happy.
Yeah.
Indeed. And I just want to remind our audience that if you have any questions, any comments, please feel free to write in the chat at any point. And one question that might come up is, what is a lyric mezzo-soprano? There's so many different categories in opera that, even I, who play lots of opera, I play violin in opera pits, which I quite love doing, but I don't even know all these things. So could you tell us a little bit more about what a lyric mezzo-soprano is?
Sure, there's a lot of voice types, which we use a fun German word called Fox. So there's a lot of voice types. So with women, you have soprano, mezzo-soprano. Mezzo means middle, so the middle female voice, and then contralto, which is a very low female voice. And then for men, you have tenor, baritone, bass baritone, and bass. And sometimes some men sing in a female octave, and they're called countertenors. So a lyric mezzo is like a little bit higher mezzo, somewhere in between soprano and mezzo. And there's another fun German word called Zwischenfach, which means kind of between the fox. So it's, there's a lot going on in opera.
Definitely. And what about some of your favorite roles to sing?
Oh, yeah. As mezzos, we get lots of fun roles. There's something in opera called pants roles, where we get to dress up as little boys. And I think probably one of the most famous is Cherubino from The Marriage of Figaro. We also have Stefano, which is the page from Romeo and Juliet. I'm sure most people are familiar with that story. And then aside from Carmen, which is probably one of the most famous mezzo roles, another famous one is Rosina from The Barber of Seville, which I'm sure all of you know the overture from Bugs Bunny cartoons. Da-da-da-da-da, so
yeah,
we make our way into the mainstream culture too.
Rosina is such a character. Like she goes through this whole aria about how she's going to be, docile and obedient and all these things, but then she has this little but, right? And then she's like, I will get exactly what I want, and I'll make sure I get it.
Yeah, she's a firecracker for sure.
Just like you, Dr. Smyth, you make sure you get what you want, and we're really quite successful. You have been quite successful of your operas and your performances. It's quite wonderful. So you took about a 2-year break from music the last couple of years, right? We brought you here in 1913, and you stopped composing it in 1911.
Yes, that is correct. I was taking just a short break to spend my time with the suffrage movement. So I did compose what you have just heard, but I did spend the majority of that time working with the other women to make a difference. And I was actually on my way to Egypt to get some inspiration and some of these ideas out of my head onto paper.
Now, you were on your way to Egypt, and we sort of, I don't want to say we kidnapped you, but you certainly didn't know that we were going to bring you to a completely different place. How have you been enjoying your stay in Long Beach? And
Oh, yes, it's quite lovely here. This town is. I am actually very flattered by how, even though you are all in the midst of a pandemic, the community is still there. And that is something that I appreciate rather much. And music and art and showing your true self is everywhere in this town. And it's been remarkable.
and I hope Daniel has put you up in a nice Airbnb.
Oh, yes, yes. With all of the things that I need, I have a digital piano right here, which is fascinating.
That's right.
Yes, there's a rabbit here. There's a lovely family here. It's been amazing, and I will be very sad to go back to my own time. Let's just say that.
I'm glad you're happy with it, Dr. Smyth. We
Yes,
pulled
thank
out
you.
all the stops for this, so.
You're gonna have to force me out if to get me back into my own time.
Well, you're welcome to stay with us as long as Daniel doesn't mind footing the bill.
Okay, I'm gonna go express my real emotions off stage.
But actually, Daniel, would you mind checking in with the audience? Do we have any audience reactions or questions?
We actually don't yet. Lots of people very excited to be here, though. So I imagine that they will start to have more questions for you, Dr. Smyth, as we continue to learn about your life, and that they'll have even more questions for. Oh, here we go. One question. Did you ever compose for full orchestra, Doctor? I like how they use your title.
Yes. Well, I've composed for many. I've composed for violin, for cello. I've composed opera. I've pretty much done it all.
You really have, and it's actually one of the things that, you really don't accept the gender stereotypes, because you were told so many times by your teachers, well, you should write chamber music and only songs because you're a woman. But you went out and wrote huge operas and overtures and symphonies.
I prefer the dramatics. I prefer everything big. But then again, the small pieces that are just piano and just voice, or the pieces that are just violin, they all have a special place in my
mind. And most personal and intimate, of course, as we'll talk about a little bit later.
Yeah, we actually had a question about what you were just mentioning, Dr. Smyth. Do you have a favorite instrument?
That's really a very hard question. It changes depending as to what I'm writing. But I will say as of right now, cello.
Oh, really? I was thinking you might say mezzo soprano voice or something.
Okay, well maybe I should say that too, because we do have a mezzo here. But that's okay. Instrument, I will say cello.
Those two.
Cello and mezzo are not
multiple choices.
Yes.
Okay, one more question from someone named Dr. Smyth Superfan. What is one thing you've seen in 2021 that you are happy has changed from your time, from Dr. Smyth Superfan?
I could answer this in several ways, but let's just say women's rights. And human rights in general, not just women, but I've come to find that people now are able to identify as they feel, and I just believe that's marvelous. And I don't think that could have happened without all of with the movement that I had done and everything that you are all continuously doing in this year.
Well, that might be a perfect actually segue to talk a little bit more about your involvement in the suffrage movement. So you knew Emmeline Pankhurst, the great suffrage leader, quite well, am I right?
Oh yes, knew her very quite well. We were very good friends, very close, in fact, and more than friends.
More than friends?
Yes.
Oh, wonderful. And what got you interested in the suffrage movement?
Well, it actually, it took some persuasion from her. It was something I was actually quite opposed to for a while. But the more she explained it, and the more passion that I saw in her eyes, and the more that I saw all of the women involved, it became one of my own passions.
Yes, and I remember a story. I don't want to give anything away too much about your future, but you do end up writing quite a few memoirs, which are very useful for music historians and novelists and everybody who's come later. So we thank you for those. And one of the kind of hilarious stories is when you're a child, you are quite an expert at throwing rocks and throwing bricks. You actually get in trouble with the police. They're looking for a boy and they can't find that boy, and they realize that it's you, and they're quite embarrassed to tell your father.
Yes, well, growing up, I had, I have 7 siblings. I am the fourth of 8, so there are quite a few of us. So, naturally, you will get into trouble with your siblings, and I just happened to be very lively as a child, and I loved nature, and I loved sports, and so put anything in my hand, and I'm going to use it.
Well, and how did you use that skill during the suffrage movement?
Yes, well, as many of you know, one of the statement pieces of the movement, and of many movements, is deeds, not words. We can only go so far with spoken words, so I taught the women how to throw rocks, and I threw one of the rocks into the window of somebody very important, and let's just say that led me to jail, to prison, but I do not regret it at all.
You don't?
Oh,
No, I
no.
even have heard quite some that you had kind of a good time in prison, in Holloway prison.
Yes, the camaraderie was fantastic between all of the women. I have a fun memory too of conducting the women with a toothbrush as we're all singing the March of the Women together, and it was quite spectacular how passionate and how we stuck together.
Yes, I believe one of your friends was quite worried about you, a famous conductor, Thomas Beecham, if I'm not mistaken. And he came to visit you in prison, and what he saw was you there proudly conducting the anthem of the suffrage movement, which I should say, the piece that Kira sang so beautifully, that really was the, it was extremely important. People were singing it on the streets. People were, it was just like the anthem of the movement, and especially the part of the movement that you were, a member of, which was the Women's Social and Political Union. You were part of the very militant wing of the suffrage movement.
Yes, which I do give acknowledgement to my father's. My father, the upbringing he had me in, it naturally made me want to join that part of the movement.
So, if you don't mind me prying a little bit more into your personal life, I'm glad you've already confirmed for us that you were in a relationship with the great suffrage leader Emmeline Pankhurst. It's been a source of some speculation. Virginia Woolf said that you two, were quite intimate. But so you are going on your way to Egypt, and Emmeline Pankhurst has been in and out of prison, and she's staying in England. So what does that mean currently for your relationship?
Yes, well, we decided to take a break, take a rest, as we are both calling it, and just to focus both of our individual times on our true passions. Not that the suffrage movement is not my passion, I just felt that it was time to expand and to take a break, and we are still very close. I plan to write to her, but I don't know how to get back to her considering the time difference now. But once I am in Egypt, I hope she thinks I'm okay. I really don't know if the time is continuing on in 1913. I don't know if I should be worried. But yes, I will be writing her a letter.
Yes, it's a little bit arrogant of us as scientists to bring you here without fully understanding what you will return to. But for the sake of history and the future.
It's going to be fine. It'll be fine. Don't worry about it.
Daniel's got it covered. He's the inventor. He knows what we're doing.
The inventor says it is, so it shall be fine.
We have insurance.
But that's always good. But returning to your private life a little bit, it's always, I think, painful to go through any separation, of course. Have you used music in any way to help you get through this rest or this separation?
Yes, and of course, especially because she and I were so close as we were working on something together as well. That always makes things more emotions involved and such. But yes, music is the way that I tell my story, how I get rid of anger and stress and fear and love and passion and all of those feelings. I love for it to come out in music. And so yes, I did come across a poem that reminded me of Emmeline, and I wrote the music around this piece for her.
Wonderful. Well, Kira, will you be able to sing that song for us today?
Yes.
And maybe either Dr. Smyth, I'm so sorry, or
Oh,
Kira, maybe
I'm excited.
I was wondering if one of you could share some lyrics as well.
Oh, yes, I would absolutely love to share lyrics. Let's see. I forgot that I was supposed to do that. So let me
We're in the chat.
Oh, there it is.
Audience members also, we have the lyrics to these wonderful songs and these wonderful poems in the chat.
They're so beautiful. I mean, it's a beautiful choice in poetry, especially for what you're describing. You're going through and went through.
Yes, let me share a piece that that really came out to me. Okay, there came to my lonely soul the friend I had waited for long, and the deep chilly silence that lay, stricken and dead, pierced to death by our love and our song. And I thought of the bird and the flower, and my soul in its knowledge grew strong.
So beautiful. And I don't know, Kira, if you would agree with me, but it seems like there's so much about, freedom in relationships and giving each other independence in this.
Also learning through other moments, how to respect the space that you're gonna give each other and find peace in that ultimately. So,
well, wonderful. So, please, if you have any thoughts about the song or the lyrics, that'd be great if you could write in the chat. And Kira, would you sing this wonderful song of Dr. Smyth's for us, please?
I would be honored. There bloomed at my cottage door a rose with a heart scented sweet. Oh, so lovely and fair that I plucked it one day, laid it over my own heart's swift beat. In a moment its petals were shed, just a tiny white mound at my feet. There flew through my casement low a linnet that richly could sing so thrillingly sweet, I could not let it go, but must cage it, the wild happy thing. But it pined in the cage I had made, not a note to my chamber would bring. There came to my lonely soul the friend I had waited for long, and the deep chilly silence lay stricken and dead pierced to death by a love and a song. And I thought of the bird and the flower, and my soul in its knowledge grew strong. and thy wilt a friend. Sing thy song round the world glad and free. By the holding I lose, by the giving I gain, and the gods cannot take thee from me. For a song and a scent on the wind shall drift in through the dowry from thee. For a song and a scent on the wind shall drift in through the dowry from thee. By the holding I lose, by the giving I
Woohoo!
Wow, it's so beautiful, Kira. Wonderful. Daniel, do we have any reactions in the chat?
Yes, we're getting a lot of support, encouragement.
I do want to mention that the poem, the lyrics, are by another Ethel. Ethel Carney Holdsworth. She is the writer of the poem, and I wrote the piano and the melody.
Thank you, Dr. Smyth. And I would just also like to add about her that she was apparently one of the first women from a working class background to become well known in England for their literary work.
Correct.
Awesome. Thank you for that that wonderful fact. We're also getting some more comments. Someone said, Deborah Fabricant said, hauntingly beautiful, which I totally agree with. Someone else said, it makes them feel like they're smelling flowers rather than picking them. I would like to know a lot more about that from Nellie and Chris. Maybe they can explain a little bit more.
I know what they mean, though.
Oh yeah, I don't smelling flowers.
When you go up to a bouquet of flowers rather than picking is an action. Smelling flowers is an experience. Well, I guess they're both experiences, but I like the words that you used there, Chris. I do.
Awesome. Someone else wrote, excellent advice on relationships in this song, Dr. Smythe. Or the poet, Ethel. So that's funny.
Why it resonated with me, so which is why I used it.
Very good. And Chris, Nellie and Chris said that they say they feel validated. So apparently you've completely hit the nail on the head with how they feel. There was one question back there from, let's see, kind of came in earlier. Oh, it was from Gordon Thomas, who I believe is in across the pond, where you're from, Dr. Smythe, right now.
Now, is it 2021 there, or is it 1913 there?
Come on, I thought we talked you through how space-time works. It's 2021. They wanted to know, how passionate were you with Lisa Herzogenberg? Oh God, my German's not very good. But she was one of your teachers when you first moved to Germany, is that right?
Yes, I went to Germany, and that's where I met her, and I met Clara Schumann, and I also met Brahms through her as well.
And actually, you may have been a bit of a romantic rival with Brahms in a sense, though, for that same Elizabeth. And you kind of had a little bit of a, also a mother-daughter relationship with her. She was a bit older than you, so a bit of a mentor figure.
Yes, I would say she was definitely a mentor, as you would say.
Awesome.
A lot of the composers I met were, though. I learned so much from all of them.
Yes, I can imagine. I mean, that story you have about getting to go out in the town with Clara Schumann and have a wild time in your memoirs. I am so jealous about that.
Oh yes, she was quite the eccentric.
Really? You partied with Clara Schumann. Wow, that's
What you call it, party? Yes, we had a good time.
wow. Sounds like quite the story. Yeah, so that's what we had in the chat this time around. So yeah,
This
we
voting
will.
person is very, very curious. I may have to because you are the one who's writing the book. I take it. You will have to read the autobiography that I apparently I will write in a little while.
Hmm. That sounds good. Yeah. We can't tell you too much, but we don't want to disrupt the space-time continuum. But for now, I think we should probably get back to the show. We have so many great questions. Maybe we'll answer some more of those afterwards.
Yeah, it's perfect. And some of the topics that were just coming up tie in so perfectly to my next questions for you, which is a little bit more about, your attraction to women and what that meant for you in, the early 19th century and the late 19th century and early 20th century.
Yes, well, being a woman in general back in this time is rather difficult. Hence the reasoning for starting a movement. We want to have all the rights that men have, and as well as women. If regardless of if you are a man or a woman attracted to the same gender, it's not something that it can express. Though, as I'm here in 2021, I do see that you are able to do that here, so that makes me happy. But yes, back in my time in 1913, it is not something that is seen as accepted.
And yet you were still relatively open in your writings about your feelings towards women.
Oh yes. I don't believe it is something that I should feel ashamed for or I should have to hide, especially because I am a woman composer in a male dominated world. I want to be as true to myself as I possibly can be.
And Kira, you identify as lesbian. Can you relate or tell us what Dr. Smyth's story means to you?
Yeah, I mean, all you did, everything you've done and will continue to do for women in general is such a huge stepping stone. I mean, I honestly, it was really easy for me. I mean, I was in the closet for 2 years in high school just because I was so nervous. And then I finally came out and my parents were, open armed. All my friends were so welcoming of that and happy for me. And, but it's nerve wracking ahead of time thinking, what if I'm going to lose family or friends or things like that? And even in just life in general, you pretty much have to come out to every new person you meet. When am I going to drop, oh, my girlfriend or whatever it is into conversation so that it's not weird later on if you need to come out, how do you drop it casually to every new person you meet so it's not a big thing and people know it's not a big thing. So, there's still, I think we've come a long way, but still I think we have a little bit farther to go in a lot of ways still.
And the opera world, although, it is part of the arts, it may not be as open to different types of gender expression as you would think.
It's true. I will say, Dr. Smyth, I appreciate your fashion choices, your bow tie. I feel so comfortable wearing my fashion choices, and you did too. And so in that way, things have, I don't know, stayed the same, or we continue to feel comfortable in our skin and fashion, whatever that is. But I will say in the operatic world, it's still, a lot of companies are still a little more conservative and expect women to be in dresses and a certain, length below the knee, things like that. And we just have to look a certain way. Makeup, hair, weight, things like that are really important still. And so it took me a long time to start wearing pantsuits, and we have a little more leeway as mezzos because we do play those pants roles I mentioned earlier. But I'd walk in my suit or my pantsuit and be like, oh, she must be a mezzo. And it's like, no, I'm a human who enjoys dressing like this. So it took a long time, and up till a couple years ago I was still wearing heels with those types of things. But recently I was able to be in a full suit with a bow tie and Oxfords, and I just said, this is me, this is what you're getting in the rehearsal room with donors, things like that. And with a lot of companies were very accepting, which was great, and some still gave the kind of eye roll or whatever. So again, still a little bit more work to do, and we're sometimes it can be a little more conservative in classical realms here, I think.
Definitely. Yeah. In my own experience, playing for opera companies, you can always tell when, especially the singers come in, because it's just they're the ones wearing heels and completely, like, even for rehearsal, they're just dressed up in a certain very specific way. So you have, Dr. Smyth, you have a very interesting song that kind of expresses some of these issues about, the way that society doesn't let us fully be ourselves or trying to be ourselves, even among the constraints of society. It's called The Clown.
Yes. This represents, especially as a woman in music, dominated by men, just being expected to be a certain way as a woman. And this, I hope you all enjoy this. This is one of my favorites.
Wonderful. And Kira or Dr. Smyth, could one of you share some of the lyrics with us so get a sense of this before we actually hear it performed?
Yes, I believe Daniel will be posting that again as well, and then I could read off the first line. Is that what's going to happen? Yes,
Yeah,
there
that's
it is.
great, because there's three kind of characters. You have a narrator, and then someone kind of mocking the clown, and then the clown's retort. And it's, I don't know, you choose some really impactful poetry to set to music. I think you, I mean, obviously you can speak better to me that than I can, but it seems like everything you pick is very potent and with a kind of other meaning.
Yes, thank you. Well, yes, and like Kira had said, this song, if you see that the first one is "There was a poor clown," so that is from our perspective. Then "Oh clown, silly clown," that's the audience. "My chain is heavy," that's the next part, that is the clown speaking, and so forth to the end. So I'm going to pick what the clown is saying. "My chain is heavy, my cell is dark. I know I can never be free. In my heart, there's a dancing spark, and the stars make music for me." I just love that.
It's so amazing and so powerful. And you actually just wrote these. We transported you right after you completed these songs. So this
These
also
are all very fresh in my mind, yes.
very fresh in your mind, and right after your experience with the suffrage movement and actual imprisonment and seeing your friends suffer quite brutal practices in prison as well.
Oh yeah, just because I said prison was fun does not mean that we did not have some very, very tough times in prison to make our statements.
I can imagine. Well, Kira, could you please sing this wonderful song for us?
Yes, I hope you'll enjoy it. It's also my favorite of what you've written. There was once a poor clown all dressed in white, and chained to the dungeon bars, and he danced all day and he danced all night to the sound of a dancing star. Oh clown, silly clown, oh why do you dance? You know you can never be free. You are tied by the leg to the strings of chains, yet you dance like a captive flea. My chain is heavy, my cell is dark. I know I can never be free. In my heart, there's a dancing spark, and the stars make music for me. Oh, muffle my cell and rivet my chains, and fetter my feet and my hands. My soul is a horse of foam without reins, that dances on deathly sands. My soul is a horse of foam that dances on deathly sands. My soul is a horse of foam without reins, that dances on deathless sands. That dances on deathless sands. Dances and rivet my chains, and fetter my feet and my hands.
Woohoo!
Amazing, Kira. Thank you, and thank you, Dr. Smythe. Daniel, can we check in with our audience and see how they're doing?
Yeah. Let's see. What do we got over here? Someone said, Gordon Thomas said, "What a powerful and beautiful song. Well sung, Kira. Excellent piano play too." I guess you.
Josh Quinn.
Yes, we had a professional pianist named Josh Quinn record these tracks in advance so that Kira could sing along to them, and he sounds great too. So thank you, Gordon, for that. We had a comment from Margaret that said, "Interesting poetry choice," and she also said, "Love the text painting in the piano."
Thank you. Yes, and the text is by a Maurice Baring. I found that from a collection of poems, and yes, the piano just, emulates a lot of what the clown is going through. I wanted it to weave in and out, fun and sporadic, but also very tense and sad, when this clown is sitting there chained up.
Yeah, it's kind of like I don't know, it's pretty dark to me, but I really enjoy that one too. We also had a comment from Aaron Moore, said, "It makes me glad that animal circuses were banned."
Oh.
So that's nice. I think we're all glad. And yeah, I guess maybe Dr. Smythe, you didn't know that was going to be in the future either. So something to look forward to.
Yes, I am an avid hunter. I do like to, but I don't really support them being treated as slaves. So I guess that I agree with that.
Cool. Then we had someone else say, Mary Beth said, "We are all dancing like captive fleas during this pandemic." Whoa.
Yeah, we're sorry to bring you here in the midst of a pandemic.
Yes, why
Well,
did you
plenty more
think
to live
during
through,
a
hopefully.
time I could get very sick and bring it back to my time?
Possible, but we'll have a huge pandemic in about 5-6 years from now anyway, back in your day. So
Oh
keep some
God. Let's not
I
mention.
know. I will bring back some what are those things you call Clorox wipes? I'll bring that back with me to 1913.
Sounds good. Thank you. All right. Well, yeah, that's what we got in the chat so far tonight. So I will.
Everyone, I would like everyone to just give Kira another round of applause. She's doing.
Yeah, she's fantastic.
Thank you.
There we go.
So, Dr. Smythe, you were quite, you broke down a lot of doors, a lot of barriers, and became, your music was performed on so many concerts. We even had a BBC broadcast to celebrate your, I believe, 75th birthday.
I'm glad to know I lived that long.
Oh yes, you will have a nice long life. So, Dr. Smith, what was it like being, a composer and a woman in this time period?
Yes. Well, like I said, being a woman in a man's world is can be very rough. I was influenced by Brahms, and I mean everyone that I was inspired by were mainly men, and I was often compared to the men, and I could be too feminine or I could be too masculine, and it's always something that I have to prove something against, if that makes sense. Being a woman, I have to prove that I am valuable and unworthy as much as the men that I am playing amongst.
If I could actually bring in an example of that, somebody wrote about your piece in the time. This little woman writes music with a masculine hand and has a sound and logical brain, such as supposed to be the special gift of the rougher sex. There is not a weak or effeminate note in Der Wald, nor an unstable sentiment. So, this is one of your positive reviews.
Yes, it is very fascinating that I'm called a little woman, and just mentionings of sex. Just it's very silly to me, and identifying weak and with feminine and masculine with strength. It's just bollocks to me.
There's a great book you should read before you go back to 1913 called Feminine Endings about some of these issues in music. But so even today, reactions to your music, there was a review by someone quite famous a few years ago about the same opera, and they refer to you, not ironically, as being headstrong. So it's like, because you had fought for your music not to have cuts, therefore you were a headstrong woman, versus, when they say that about, we always praise Ravel for not changing his string quartet, a note of his string quartet after criticism. That's considered very, good composer thing to do. But for you, you're headstrong, even in 2017. Which kind of brings us to the present day also. I mean, of course, things were so difficult for you then, and you did so much to fight to make things so much better, but things are far from perfect. Kira, do you have any thoughts about what it's like to be a musician today, or things that we can improve?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I feel like we refer to people as, we should just refer to anyone as composer, director, conductor, but it's female composer, female director, female conductor. And, the Met did perform your work, which was incredible, but another female composer hasn't been shown there for, I think, 100, I don't know the exact.
Yeah, it was 100 years over 100 years until another woman was performed at the Met.
Even still now, it's not, I don't know, it's just not.
That just boggles my mind. I feel like, all of this work that we had put in, and so many years later, and there's been, even that student I spoke to of Daniel's, she had never really performed anything by a female composer. And just, I thought that I would be able to see that there had been more work. And of course there is, it's just not in the news, it's not mentioned, it's not being performed. And that's very heartbreaking to me.
Yes, I think that actually in England, in the time period when you were alive, women were getting more performances on concerts than they are currently. So we've actually backtracked in terms of the number of women being programmed in orchestras and operas.
Why do you think that is?
Well, I think that things are very entrenched, and I think it has a lot to do with power. As soon as there's any power, I think, associated with a role in music, we're very happy to let women teach young children music. But if it's directing an opera or conducting or composing, it still feels like there's a lot of resistance to that. Mm-hmm. I mean, when I was in school, 60-70% of my classmates at conservatory are women. And then when I get out in the world, you end up noticing it's pretty much 99% men in the leadership positions. And it's just so stark. And Dr. Smyth, you said something so powerful about this, about how, in music, because there are no rules and because it's so much about networking and opening doors, it makes it very difficult for women to advance compared to other fields like literature.
Yes, it's much of a gentleman's club. It's those you become good friends with, and it's hard to get into the cracks, as you will.
But there are very few opera companies run by females, and so if you're trying to let your friends in or whatever, it's gentlemen's club is exactly the right word for what still is kind of happening. And also in music theory, I have 2 degrees in music, and very few women are being represented then from an early age, and being our teachers aren't giving us songs by women. You know, I wish I had programmed all of your music on my senior recital. Things like that to help move forward and have representation, which matters for female composers to say, oh, wow, cool, there are composers who are women, and I could do that too. So I think we have still a lot of work to do, clearly.
We have a lot of work to do, but I feel like programs like this, thanks to Leila and Daniel, just everyone involved in this, bringing the consciousness forward as to the women that are in music, who from the past, and hopefully to create more of an effort or of a passion in younger students to become it as well. And so I really appreciate, Daniel, that it may have been jolted, and I feel a little weird being in a different time, but it's been a pleasure, and I hope that we are expanding minds.
Us too. Thank you so much again for agreeing to stay after the initial surprise of being transported.
Yes, and I see a very interesting comment in our chat about Long Beach. So Long Beach was very forward-thinking. The symphony had a female conductor before practically any other nationally recognized orchestra, Joanne Falletta, who's quite a famous, well-renowned conductor. I believe she also conducts in Buffalo a lot. So there, is progress being made? And what? Maybe one last question is, what can we do to help things move forward on this front?
You just have to keep going. Like I've said, sometimes words are not enough. You have to just keep composing music. You have to keep moving forward. You have to keep speaking to others. And I mean, it is very disheartening to come to this year and find out that I am not as known as I thought I would be. So it's just spreading the word. It is expanding the minds of our future, which is the young children who you are all teaching.
Action, not work.
Deeds,
Action,
not words.
Deeds, not words.
Not words.
Thank you, Dr. Smyth.
So, I mean, metaphorically, you can think of that rock. Think of the composer is the rock, and you're throwing that composer into the window of all of our minds. We need more acknowledgement for women.
Wonderful. Well, we thought we would share something that's going to be part of your future as well, written by another composer. Kira, could you tell us a little bit about this last surprise we have for Dr. Smyth?
Yes, it's actually a cabaret art song called Amour. It's by William Bolcom, and he actually wrote a bunch of cabaret songs for his mezzo-soprano wife, which I'm sure you could get on board with, Joan Morris. It's a very fun song, and I thought you'd appreciate kind of there's some different vocal techniques and rhythmic structure that's kind of fun. So I think you'll enjoy it. I hope you will enjoy it as much as I love singing it.
And if I can just remind everybody, if you can please, write your reactions in the chat. We appreciate that so much. And thank you, Kira.
It wasn't the policeman's fault in all the traffic roar. Instead of shouting halt when he saw me, he shouted amour, 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 amour. Even the ice cream man, free ice cream by the score. Instead of shouting butter pecan, one look at me, he shouted amour, amour, amour. All over town it went that way. Everybody took off the day. Even philosophers understood how good was the good, 'cause I look so good. The poor stopped taking less. The rich stopped needing more. Instead of shouting no and yes, both looking at me shouted amour. Ba-da-da-da-da-da-da. in town was cut short. I was dragged to court. The judge said I disturbed the peace, and the jury gave him what for. The judge raised his hand, and instead of desist and cease, Judgy came to the stand, took my hand, and whispered amor, 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 amor. Night was turning into day. I walked alone away. Never see that town again. But as I passed the church house door, instead of singing amen, the choir was singing amor, ba-da-dum-ba, ba-da-da-dum, ba-da-ba-da. Amor, amor, amor.
Woohoo!
It's a fun one. It's such a fun one.
Wonderful.
Excellent.
Daniel, would you see if we have any comments in the chat?
Yeah, here we go. So, got some comments, some applause. Elizabeth Lear says, "Yay, what a fun song." We got some emoji hands from Sarah Pinsky. Someone said that was so fun. Love all the expression. I definitely love all of your expression, Kira, especially the wink at the end.
Thank you.
Do
You
that
always need
so
a
well.
button. You need a button.
Yes, you need a button. Very good. Love it. Someone wrote, Margaret wrote, like the scatting. And for those people that don't know, scatting is which is da-da-dee-da-da. Is that, do I have that right?
Jazz technique.
Right.
I don't know what it is, so it would be nice if you could clarify.
I don't want to demonstrate scatting.
I appreciated what you were just doing, though. That was a very nice tone that you
I
had.
think it'll find you pretty soon. That
Uh,
technique. So.
Maybe it's because I bring it back.
Maybe.
Yeah, the secret.
Uh-oh. Don't bring too much back, though.
I won't.
Absolutely. Someone, Mary Beth Scriven wrote, absolutely charming. We need more amor. Call the government. Great scatting. Deeds not words. Amor. Throw the brick through the window. Sounds like Mary Beth's on board. Deborah Fabricant recommended, Dr. Smythe, that you listen to Ella Fitzgerald for scatting, for scat singing. She's a jazz singer, so we can make sure you can listen to some of that before you go home. Margaret wants to know, when did that song come out? How long does Ethel have to wait for it?
So that composer was born in 1938, and he's still living. So you can go meet him if you want. He wrote 4 books of cabaret songs, and they're all just as fun and wonderful as that one. And they were released between the 70s and 90s. So
yeah. Smythe might have to wait until the afterlife.
Yeah, like right now.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, everybody, for putting those comments in the chat. It really makes us feel like you're here with us in a way, and it's lovely because in a real concert, I feel like we don't really get to hear you say those things. Maybe you're saying them in your head, or you're whispering them to the person sitting next to you. But it's so great to see them as the concert's going on. So thank you, everybody. Yeah.
Yes, I'm usually just in the audience experiencing or conducting, and so it's very nice to be able to talk to the audience.
Yeah, definitely.
Well, I would like to thank Kira and Dr. Smythe, dare I say Ethel, at this point.
You can call me.
Is that okay? Thank you. It's so wonderful to hear you sing, and so great to have you with us. And I think I will hand it back over to the inventor of the time machine, Daniel.
I can't take all the credit, but sorry.
Let's just give Leila a round of applause. Like, she's been a fantastic host.
Thank you again, Kira and Leila. Sorry, Leila.
Leila and Kira both.
I thought you've been so great. Thank you so much for hosting the event, Leila. Thank you so much, Kira. Thank you so much, Dr. Smyth. One of the things we love to do at the end of these types of shows is take a group photo. So at this point, we would love everyone to share their video. Everybody, smile. 1, 2, 3. And I think we're gonna sing March of the Women one more time as we exit today. So if you would like to sing along again, I don't know, we could even have you unmute yourselves if you want. I don't know what will happen, but let's go for it. Just let the piano intro a little bit.
Yes, everybody unmute yourself. Let's see what happens. Let's see what happens. Unmute yourself.
Shout, shout, up with your song, cry with the wind, for the dawn is breaking. March, march, swing along, while
blows our banner and hope is waking.
Song with its story, dreams with their glory. Hark how it swells, thunder of freedom, the voice of the Lord.
Thank you,
Y'all
everybody,
nailed it.
for coming.
Nailed it.
I'll bring this technology back with me.